Okay, so I called to order the Board of Assessors meeting at 9:38. And I have to say that this is a public meeting being audio recorded for cable broadcast and internet posting on the Dayton-mass.gov and YouTube channels. Oh, yeah, pledge of allegiance, yeah. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion that we take out of order. Is it item 5H, due to the fact that we have Mr. Hershey in attendance.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I also have to recuse myself of this discussion and any vote that comes with that because Nate is my cousin. And I guess that's what I'm supposed to do.
Okay.
So I will do it. Do I have to go sit over there now?
Yes, you do. And you have to behave. Sure to behave. All right. Mr. Hershey, do you know the members of the board?
I do not. Could I get a list of who is in attendance? First of all, thank you for reordering yourself so you could take me out of order. I appreciate that.
Okay. Okay, so present, let's start with Stephanie.
Stephanie Schechter, the assessor.
Bill Moore.
Nancy Goulart.
Lisa Tatro.
All right, so Bill, Eric, and I are the elected members of the board, and Stephanie is the appointed assessor full-time. So would you like to start to address the board on your concerns?
Sure. Again, thank you again for providing a number here that I could call into. We live on Chestnut Street in North Dayton, 2440 Chestnut Street. We bought that land and built a house on it, and our occupancy we moved in July of 21. The concern came up that there was an error on our line card, and we had filled out some paperwork, and I forget what you guys call that. There's a term for an abatement, I guess. For the error, and I was refunded in January of 22 for that error in square footage and bathroom, quantity. But it's recently come up that change, it doesn't look like it's been, properly, I guess, entered into the system or what. But from January of 22 to present day, that error and that overpayment is still, on the books here. And I didn't understand how this has happened, first of all, and what we're going to do to correct that. And I also, in talking with some of the members in the office, it sounds like we can't make that correction until January of 24. So I'd like to talk about all those different things.
So back in fiscal year 22, you filed an abatement because we had a finished area over the garage you were being assessed for, which you didn't have it finished, and also a half bath. That's where we were, right?
That's correct.
So we did the abatement, and for some reason, those two items were not removed from his property card. An error, I'm not sure. So, he brought it to our attention in March. Abatement period is already past tense. Even if it is our error, there's still, we have it corrected now going forward, but we were unable to do an abatement and refund him some money because the abatement period is passed.
I thought that was April 1st.
No, that's exemptions. Abatements are just the month of January. February 1st is the deadline.
Okay.
When the actual bills go out. So we have it corrected going forward, but he feels it's a burden because he's paying for something that it should be off.
Not only is it, he's already corrected it.
Correct. And yes. So January, so these bills that come out are preliminary, so they're just going to be based off what he paid last year. And that's not going to take into account 1,600 that came up. So, and you won't see it reflected on his tax bill until January, when the actual bills come out.
Yeah, but then he'll end up paying a whole year of extra, correct?
Correct, that's why we suggested
How much is the difference?
it was $1,600.
Hold on, just to clarify, it's not 1 year, it's 2 years. January 22 to January 24.
Didn't you say that the first one you were given a refund on?
We were given a refund for July 21 between
for
that date
21.
and January 22.
And so our year runs July 1st of 21 to June 30th of 22.
Yeah, that's one year.
That's 1 year's tax. Yeah.
Right, so now you've got 2023, the full year you're being taxed
For 22 through 24.
for, right, and then.
Exactly.
I know, but that's only 1 year because we're gonna correct it when you're doing the abatement in January for 24's fiscal year.
Yeah, understand, we're not talking about calendar year here. So the fiscal year 21 to 22, that was the time that you received an abatement back. Now we're talking about fiscal year of 22 to 23, where there was an error made and you're not getting the money back. And going forward, 23 to 24, it will be corrected.
Yes.
It's already.
So let me just dumb it down for me. So from January 22 all the way till when? January 24, there will
It's
be an
not
overpayment.
It's not January. We run from
July.
July.
1st, middle of the year to the middle of the next year.
Right. You
Okay,
received
so
your.
when did I start paying? When did I start overpaying?
The abatement was for fiscal year 22, which was July 1st, 21 through June 30th of 22.
Okay, so from June 22 all
Yeah.
the way till when we now have to file this in January. So that's 18 months, right?
No, July 1, 22, not June.
Yep, July 1st of 22.
Until now,
Yeah,
that's less than a year.
So we're saying roughly 18 months, right?
Since,
Okay,
I'm not
that's what I just want to level set here. 18 months of overpayment, correct?
But you were given back, correct? You were given a
Right,
check
so
back
he's
for
saying-
12.
for all of 23, that's 12 months. It's an error. Fiscal year 23.
Fiscal year 23, that
Right.
is correct. Yeah.
So now we're in July 1st, starting 24. It's still an error. So he is adding fiscal year 24 from July 1st to the end of December.
But you're gonna fix fiscal
We're gonna
24
fix
in
fiscal
January.
24 for January, so
So it's 12 months when the adjustment's made.
the adjustment.
Right.
will
So
take-
Nancy, so Nancy, let me just make sure I understand too. So from now until January, I will be paying an incorrect amount. I will be refunded in January, that's fine. But from here on out, we know that there's an error and I'm still going to be paying an error. Does that really make sense?
Unfortunately, we don't make the rules, but that's the rules for why we get two estimated tax bills. And then when we have our final meeting in the fall, we will have had the annual town meeting, which sets the budget for FY 24. And then we have the fall one in to finish up, if you will, anything that needs to be taken care of. So the first two bills that you get after July 1st, and then it's
It's August and November.
all right, so August and November, those are estimated bills. And then all the town business is wrapped up, hopefully, and we set the tax rate. When the bill comes out in January, you will have had the opportunity of, it's going to be done. There will be this adjustment. And it will take care of the first two bills. The other thing is, as we all know, this adds to the confusion. When you get that bill in January, it's usually more because obviously there may have been a slight increase in either the tax rate or your valuation. But the two bills that are estimated that you will pay prior to January 1st of 24 will be part of the abatement process in January of 24. But all those rules, those aren't even town rules. All of that comes from the Department of Revenue. And this is how they make us do these things. And that's why there are deadlines, like there's only 1 month to apply for abatements. And as Mrs. Schechter said, exemptions are a different story. There's more time. But and so we're bound by DOR rules.
Okay, was this a DOR error?
No, it's not a DOR error. The error was made here.
Exactly. So the town should correct this, and they should correct this now.
We can't.
So this was something
What
that
happened?
was done. This was something that was.
What
an error in our office, correct? It's not a matter of him filing for an abatement because he has a beef with how he adjusted his taxes. This is a clerical error. Can we not correct? A clerical?
Exactly.
I don't think we can outside of that.
We have corrected it, so moving forward, it will be correct, but we can't change values right now. We can't make an adjustment to his value until January. It was explained to Mr. Hershey on the phone that if you January 1st, whatever is there is there. If you knock down the house in February, you're still going to be paying taxes on that house for the entire year
So-
until the correction is made.
But
So,
in a matter of
At
situation-
no fault, at no fault of my own, I will be undue burdened.
So even if I knock down the house in the middle of the year, that means the property changed. He's not saying the property changed. He's saying that,
Exactly.
no, we had an assessment issue. He filed for an abatement. We granted an abatement
Correct.
and then we
understand.
didn't fix the problem. This is our
It's in
fault.
error.
I don't think any person should have to file for abatements year after year after year because our office isn't
It's
fixing the numbers.
human error.
Yes, correct. I'm not saying that we're bad people. I'm just saying that it's not his fault and he shouldn't have to
Correct.
pay.
And we
extra
understand
taxes.
that. It's just that the way things are done to the Department of Revenue. I really think our hands are tied.
So my understanding, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt you,
I'm done.
but isn't there a portion where we are allowed to petition the DOR to say we've made a mistake and do some extraordinary action? I thought I recall reading there's some, I can go looking.
We have different like omitted and revised things that we can apply for. I just don't know if this is one of them. I'd have to do a little more research.
Okay,
I have a question. I thought of it when you were talking, Bill.
you should be listening, not thinking.
Listen to me, don't think what I'm.
Don't think while I'm talking.
Now I'm really thinking about it. Mr. Hershey, at any time when there's conversation going on, if you can't hear somebody, just say speak up. Because I'm not sure how the mics are picking things up and we're kind of sitting here in a C-shaped table. So my question is, when I was thinking instead of listening, what I was doing. All right, so the first time he let you know that the bathroom in the office of other room over the garage, okay, we're done, and that was taken care of. Are those, so when you do it the first time, because I don't know the answer, when you do it the first time, does it automatically carry over? Or if he had finished it, how would you know he finished it? Because if you carried it over and it was the exemption, it would be wrong. Because he would have finished it and then that assessed value would include the finished product. So I'm looking at this from both sides. How do you handle that? So it was done the first time. Do you automatically carry forward or how do you know whether or not he's actually finished this portion of his
Usually you
property.
would have a building permit showing
Okay,
that it was.
Okay.
We did not.
okay. So in that case, it should have carried over automatically, which it didn't. The error was made. So the error's been found now. So we know the procedure for next January, okay? So, I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. Nothing is sticking in my head right now. Oh, we got to fill out this form and this happens. So I think what we're gonna have to do is have you contact the Department of Revenue, explain to them what happened. And ask them if there's any way, excuse me, there is any way to make an adjustment for basically a clerical error. So that we can give Mr. Hershey the information from the Department of Revenue, at least make an attempt to see if we can do anything.
So just to be clear, Nancy, I'm not concerned about getting the refund. I understand that's coming. What I want to try to correct is a constant overpayment from here to the end of the year.
That's what we're gonna contact the Department of Revenue about.
So
That's
that-
something we
Right,
can do,
okay.
right, because our year ends June 30th.
Okay, but he's talking about the two bills that are coming up between now and January the 1st, isn't that correct?
That's it doesn't, so I can file and get a refund. I'm not concerned about that, right? What doesn't make sense, now that we have caught this error, why will I continue to pay the higher amount? That doesn't make sense.
For the two estimated bills, because the January bill will be based on a solid new tax rate.
And new values,
Correct.
where the
So-
first two bills are just grabbing whatever you paid in taxes, which there was no abatement
Correct.
done to reduce your taxes. So that is what the difference is for these two bills in July. So we're gonna contact the Department of Revenue and see if there is a way to do this abatement outside of the time frame, if they allow it, and then your taxes would be correct. They would be correct when you get the next two bills, because they'll take into account the abatement. And these first two are
That's
just
great.
paid, and what the abatement was summed up, divided by 4, and that'll be what it is. So our next step
That's
is
great.
the Department of Revenue to see if we can fix this.
You know, and I'm thinking about this, if I were the taxpayer dealing with this, knowing that in January, it's gonna get straightened out, and it will be straightened out for the entire FY 24 tax year. I would almost go to the collector and say, this is $1,600, right? So it's $400 per quarter. When I paid my taxes, each quarterly payment during 23, which are the two estimated, I would pay $400 less and let the tax collector know. I'm not. gonna
Bingo.
put The $400 up.
That's not how it works, though. It would get late fees and.
Yeah, but you're gonna abate
I
the
know.
whole thing in January.
I know.
All I'm saying, I'm not saying the town does that. I'm saying as the taxpayer,
Yep.
which is something he can think about. I'm not telling him to do this, but what I'm saying is knowing it's all gonna get straightened out. And quite frankly, I'm sure, and I'm not saying Mr. Hershey, but I'm sure that there are people in town that the extra $400 for two quarters is a burden, or I'll leave it at that. So what I'm saying is on my own as the taxpayer, when I paid my taxes, since I know the bill is $400 higher than it should be, I would just make note when I pay it, I'm paying, if the bill is $1,000, I'm gonna pay $600. Yes, there will be fees. Yes, there will be all of that, but I think knowing it's gonna happen in January,
The
whatever fees or
the-
whatever, we
the-
should be able to take care of
the-
that.
The
Mr.
amount is I'm sorry. The amount is completely irrelevant here. Has nothing to do with the conversation. If there is an overpayment, a tax overpayment that is undue to somebody, it doesn't matter what the amount should be. It shouldn't be based on the amount.
Okay.
I am shocked. I am shocked that we had to have a meeting to discuss this and we couldn't just take this offline.
Well, we have to do everything, none of the assessors can operate outside of these meetings. Like, we can't even talk to each other about this stuff.
So,
I'd like to-
so the office couldn't contact the DOR to try to straighten this out
Oh,
on
that's
their
what-
own without a
So
meeting?
give me a second, give me a little bit of leeway here, because I think I have the answer here, this is what I was talking about. It's called 8 of 58 abatement. DOR may authorize assessors to abate real and personal property taxes in certain circumstances where they no longer have the legal power to abate because the taxpayer did not timely apply for abatement. This is a discretionary administrative procedures that assessors may use to clear uncollectible taxes or rectify significant assessment errors. It is not a taxpayer remedy. Assessors are not required to request abatement authority for any particular taxpayer. DOR is not required to grant it, and assessors are not required to exercise it if granted. So this is what I'm saying,
Right,
is that the Board of Assessors can go to DOR
which is,
and basically request an abatement on Mr. Hershey's behalf.
which is what we've asked Mrs. Schechter to do. Get in touch with
He's got
DOR.
the right.
Right, this is
Yeah, yeah.
the section, this is the one
Right.
place in this entire rule book that
Just
gives
so
us. a
you're
little bit of
aware
leeway.
that if someone does file for an abatement and they haven't paid all their taxes, they're not allowed to have an abatement.
That is
You
true.
can't take your $400 off each quarter because then you won't be able to do it.
Oh, boy, they zonk you both ways.
Yes.
Yeah. she-
I will
All right.
contact the DOR.
Yep.
And see if we can get this fixed, so.
Not to belabor the point. Now that you read that, we already had a circumstance like this. Historically, nothing urgent. When you get a chance, look back and see what, I don't believe we did it, but I don't remember all the details. But it'd just be information for us going forward. But certainly, what we've already suggested based on that is the route to go. So I will entertain a motion to have Mrs. Schechter contact the DOR,
So moved.
and we'll come up with a wording which will allow you to contact them to get a ruling on abating Mr. Hershey's property. I'll step down in second. Discussion?
Anything from Mr. Hershey about this?
Nope, that sounds good. I do have one other question outside of this.
Okay, I'm gonna call the vote and then we'll go back to you, okay? All in
Yep.
favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay, Mr.
Thank
Hershey,
you.
you're up.
So Nancy, did I just hear you correct that this has happened once before too?
There was a request, not under these circumstances, but when Mr. Moore read that section, it kind of rang a bell. And I'm
Yep.
trying to remember what it was. I don't remember the exact circumstances. Every abatement request that's made comes in a timely manner, which is the month of January, comes before the board. And we have to discuss them in executive session because of the nature of the rules that go along with abatements. So I will just leave it at all abatements are not granted. That's because each one is a individual, even if they're similar, we have to go through them one by one and look at the evidence.
Sure.
And in some cases, we've got some pending right now that we notified the property owners that as of the last meeting, we still need more info. So we'll be going into executive session at the end of this meeting to try to resolve those requests.
So what I'm asking, does the town follow a process that's set out by the state?
And
Or does the town come up with their own process?
Oh, no.
absolutely everything we do, yes.
The
Okay,
Board of
so if this error was made, but it's a state process, is there an issue with the state process?
So I would say, contact your local legislatures. I mean, our hands are tied. I've always felt that these deadlines are egregious, but there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, like Nancy had said before, you know, the deadline is February 1st. That's it. Our hands are tied. Once it goes past, we can't even accept an application. So.
I understand, but the error that happened within the office, is that process or that system or software system, whatever it is that set by the Department of Revenue?
see.
And
So I know, I don't believe.
so where I'm going with this is, if this is now the second time this has potentially happened, how many other times has this happened and maybe nobody else has noticed, right?
So-
I think that there should be a full review of how this is handled at this town level.
So all I have to say is from this board's position, our assessors do an excellent job and they process a lot of paperwork and a lot of valuations and assessments, and 99.9% of the time they get it right. And in this case, you know, mistake was made. Everyone makes mistakes. And we're going to do our best to correct it for you. And you know, this may have, you know, when Nancy says it's happened in the past, I've heard Nancy before talk about stuff that happened a decade ago. So it's not, this isn't like a process, a problem that happens constantly. So please don't feel that way.
Nate, the other
Okay.
thing I was saying, Mr. Hershey, the other thing I will say to you is, as Mr. Moore said, everything that occurs in the assessor's office relative to taxation, which is where it starts before it even goes to the collector, is under rules and regulations by the Department of Revenue. And what Mr. Moore read, that section of the law, he's actually reading right from DOR
Sure.
handbook. So if you truly believe that there is a problem in the assessor's office, then your next route would be get in touch with town administrator and ask him if, when town has its annual audit again, which happens every year by law, that the auditors zero in on the assessing department, because each year, besides auditing the entire town, the auditing firm usually says to the Board of Selectmen, by the way, is there any one department you want us to look at? And in the past, it's been, I can think of police department, library, council on aging, and they look at it and see how the operation goes, if there are best practices that they can suggest, but outside of that,
Yep.
but that would be your next step if you want to pursue it.
Okay, that's terrific. Thank you very much for that.
We're all set with this?
Is there anything else? Did you, Mr. Hershey?
How about a timeline? We haven't heard a timeline on when this is going to take place. And I know we're, you know, dependent on what the state comes back to us at, right? But are we thinking 30 days or what?
What's the date for our next meeting?
24th
24th of
June
June,
or 21st of June.
21st of June. It's 3 weeks, roughly.
Okay.
It obviously, Mrs. Schechter can get in touch with the Department of Revenue. Excuse me. Like, I don't mean to be critical, but you don't always get instant answers from state agencies. So we'll do our
Preaching to the
best.
choir there.
We'll do our best to have something for the next meeting. If there is information available before them, Mrs. Schechter can get in touch with you.
I have a wrench. to
Okay,
throw
that
you.
sounds great.
Wait a minute,
Hold on one
Mr.
second.
Moore is checking
I
something.
will not be here on the 21st. And since Eric can't act on this.
Oh, that's a problem. Okay, so we're gonna reschedule the,
We also have a 28th.
I will not be here on the 28th.
well, you're just taking too much time
I
off.
got a new job and I'm Israel.
We'll give you permission.
So do we need to do the Wednesday before that?
Um,
Or you're gonna be-
well, I'm going to be away from the 15th to the 28th. So. Outside those bounds.
Well,
Well, whatever it is, if somebody just would shoot me an email or give me a call, that would be terrific.
Yep, we can do that.
Okay, we can let you know
What we find out.
what she, and if she's, I'll call it, if she's put on hold, she can at least give you a report. And we'll let you know, it's got to come back to the board again anyhow, at a meeting
Sure.
when at least, Mr. Moore and I are here, so that it can be acted on. So,
Sure.
she'll give you a progress report somewhere along the way, and if she gets a definite answer from them that says, yeah, it's okay with us, obviously, there's going to be paperwork that transpires, but we'll keep you in the loop as
Sure.
best we can.
Okay, terrific. Thank you all. I much would have, rather have been in person, but I appreciate, you extending this out on the phone too as well. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you. Bye-bye.
Mr. Easterday,
Come back to the dinner table.
it's all yours.
Okay.
Welcome back.
You carved the turkey.
Okay.
So.
5A.
So
5A.
places we don't have any of them.
Okay.
We have some motor vehicle. We have 2023's motor vehicle and we have 2012's motor vehicle abatements. They are, yes, because they are cleaning their books and
Oh, I see.
collectibles.
Uncollectible.
Yeah, so I think it's the registry is starting to go every 10 years, so we're working with them. I think that's the email I read.
So they send you a notice, the registry does?
I know there was email that went out, but I think this was through Paul.
Oh, okay.
Like Paul is the one who got the information, but I think he forwarded something to me about it. So I think they're, after 10 years, probably people have passed or
I was just gonna ask. what's the reason?
they're not gonna get their money for whatever reason that they haven't gotten it yet. And it could just be people passed, it could be,
Moved away.
moved.
They leased the car and the leasing company got it.
I motion that we sign the 2023 motor vehicle abatements in the amount of $2,863.00, as well as the 2012 motor vehicle abatements in the amount of $3,129.23.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move on.
Yep, we have a lien release, 2 liens being because this gentleman is changing it into his wife, himself and his wife's name. So we're releasing the 2 liens. They're on separate liens, and then we're recording it back just on one. So I need all 3 pages.
Chapter.
Yeah, chapter 61.
52. Separate properties.
2 separate properties coming
And then they're
out.
putting it
But
together as
it's,
one.
yes, it's just a name change. So it's not done to it.
Oh, so we've got 2 releases and 1 put back in,
With both of them.
and nothing has changed.
Just
I
the
motion
name.
that we sign the reclassification for.
I guess Raymond Shaw, so I guess C and D, because you're gonna release those 2 and record it, so.
Right, we're going to sign the release for Raymond Shaw, approximately 100 acres. And the re-record for the same property.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Ugly motion.
I'll make it
We'll
sound.
still pretty it up for you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And Lisa's there to make sure they. That's not why she.
Thank you. We need that. I know.
Oh, so she's like the enforcer?
Yes.
Okay.
It brings it back to the office. I'm like,
Quality control.
again, Eric signed the cover, but he didn't
We've
sign.
now got quality control. It's like coming back to the office.
Sit right next to him.
Is that Bill?
Next to him.
I keep checking for page two.
We put a sign here just for you.
I can't read.
We do. They won't be sticking these much longer. They've been.
Don't be asking for more budget.
I know.
No,
More
I
stickies.
went and got the other ones from Leanne.
Yeah. Those have been handy. Okay. Okay, so. This is a rollback for Reed Brothers, okay, they paid. But we never put it into a warrant commitment form, so it can be accounted for with the accountant and the
Okay.
tax collector. So. This has already been signed, we already have the money, we just could not find. The paperwork signed to be able to accept it. So we're making it official.
Sign
You know, people.
three.
I out end of year things and.
Motion that we sign the rollback tax for Reed Brothers Farm.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
That's strictly Eric signature.
Uh-oh,
It's the chairman that needs to sign it off on, a forestry plan, a renewed. Forestry,
guess we can't fault you for that.
Okay.
so that's just.
No motion there, Bill.
Who won this one?
It's just I think it's just when that comes through, Lisa, it's just,
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
do we have to actually motion for Eric to sign this?
The forestry
Yeah.
plan? No. Well, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, but. It has to be accepted by the chairman of the board and then go back to the homeowner and the forester.
It's really just a formality because we had already approved and signed off on it, right?
No, that's
saying.
different.
Yeah, so
No, I think we should
That's a
vote.
different.
this is a different one.
Correct.
I'm saying if this is something new and different, yes. I know what he signed.
Yeah, it's a renewed forestry plan. Every 10 years, they have to renew their plan. So it's.
No change in plan.
No.
No, nothing. Okay, well then maybe we should make a motion to look at it or not look at it.
Motion to sign it. Motion for the
Chairman,
chairman to sign it.
second,
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
I
aye.
just tend to think,
Yeah.
you know, this stuff rubs me the wrong way. Why are we signing something?
I got
We
you.
have no power over not signing it.
Right,
Then don't sign it. You know, just-
right,
It doesn't make any sense.
right. I got you.
This is. Motor vehicle warranty commitment for 2023. It's a third batch of motor vehicles going out.
Commitment.
Yeah.
When are we getting? That's a number. I move that we sign the warrant and commitment for motor vehicle excise taxes in the amount of $136,020.37.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All's in favor?
aye.
Okay, this was something that we put in. I didn't want to amend again. I don't know if I can just put it on unanticipated. You know, the property that was auctioned off. Well, we received tax money So it's new to me. Actually, it's kind of new to myself and Paul. So we just needed to do a little research and it's a pro forma tax that has to be accounted for on an omitted. So I didn't put it on here as amended, but can we just do it?
So what do you need us to do?
You guys are gonna sign this warrant and commitment, just like you did everything else, but I don't have it on the agenda because we just put it together. We finally got the information we were waiting on, so.
Okay, so why don't you we'll get that on the agenda,
Okay.
that item, all right? 'Cause,
See, they were mad.
is all of 5 done now?
Everything's done on the. The business.
So let's public input.
What do you think? What are we doing there?
Oh, that's gonna come up under unanticipated items.
Okay.
So we have to.
Oh, I see. Number
Public
9.
input
Oh, so our
next.
public input. Okay.
Yep, so I think that.
So,
We have public input.
Mr. I went to the meeting.
So this is his, the notes,
Oh, this is Scribbly. Did you give a copy of this Scribbly to everybody?
well, that's Eric's.
Oh,
This is yours.
so, all right, so I went to the meeting the other night
Pages
of the, is it Development and Industrial? Why don't you come up to the table?
This is why Mr. Lee.
Yes.
I couldn't imagine.
Well,
just wanted to hang out.
We weren't having fence viewers, so I asked him to come to this anyhow. So I went to the meeting the other night because there was an item about the assessors. And so they gave me this sheet and all those scribbly things are notes that I made. And so I asked Mr. Higgins if he would come because they would like the Board of Assessors to attend future meetings and address some of the issues that are on here. And what I said to him was, in looking at this, we're probably going to have questions for you. For example, under 9, that sentence lists a whole bunch of things, and I listed out separately. There are 4 different taxes per se. So anyhow, Mr. Higgins is here to give us an idea of what his committee is looking for, and we can do some research. And if we have more questions, get back to him. But eventually, they would like us to attend their meeting and give like a little presentation and answer questions. So
So just a little bit of background. So a few months ago, the DDIC started talking about questions we had been receiving from businesses in town, which we were unable to answer. A lot of them were around assessments and taxes and how they're calculated. I will say many of them came from people who own home-based businesses who were particularly confused about, am I supposed to be paying taxes? I don't pay taxes. If I pay them, am I under commercial? Am I personal? What am I supposed to be paying, if anything, for personal property? It's just a computer and a phone and all this kind of stuff. And a lot of those have been because we've been going around town with various events in the past, starting with last year's networking event that was held at Aggie. We've had a couple other outreach things that we've done to the businesses. So these are some of the things that have come back to us. So Paul Reynolds, who was a member of the, had reached out to Bill, I think, and started talking about having the assessors come, and Bill had requested a draft of the questions that would probably be presented. So at Monday's meeting, we reviewed a list of draft questions. So this was a draft. We didn't have any amendments to this, so I think this is kind of final. We were planning to, or Bill, Paul rather, was going to send this forward to Bill, kind of just key up this discussion. But as Nancy said, she's just like, come here and just answer any questions you may have about what we're intending and why. It's not so much that we were looking to have you come to inform us, the DDIC. We were going to promote it, invite businesses to come in, those people who had questions, turn it into an information session, but just conduct it during our normal regular business meeting. And we would like to have somebody from the assessor department come field those questions, using this as a starting point for what you have in front of you.
So one thing I want to just clarify is that, at least from what I quickly read here, all of these things are state mandates or state law.
Right.
There's no difference between, Dayton or Swansea or Taunton, they're all the same. So all the same rules would apply. It wouldn't, so if a business was looking to locate in Dayton, it wouldn't be special rules that wouldn't apply elsewhere.
Correct, yeah.
One of the questions I was asked was small business that operates in someone's home. And I didn't have an answer for it, but I've since gotten it from Mrs. Schechter. If I open a salon in my home, and it's just me, I'm the only cosmetologist, one chair, one sink, you know, and whatever clientele I have, I would pay personal property tax on the equipment that I have. Okay, so I wasn't aware that the really small businesses would do that. But you want to explain about whether it's a salon or a accounting business that I run out of my home or anything like that? How would the assessors be aware of that? Would you get something from the clerk, like a business certificate?
Usually
Or?
they would apply for a business certificate. And then we would inform our collectors, which is RRC Research. I don't know what the whole big name is. We just call them RRC. They go out and they collect the information from the properties. And usually they will have them, the owner or whoever's there, look over their list to make sure it's accurate. So I know sometimes people say, oh, well, they didn't come in. You know, I don't know. If, you know, you have to make an appointment, but yeah, so whatever they have in the trash can, the taxes.
I will say, and there's no hard numbers on this because it's collected from a variety of sources, but between business certificates from the town clerk, which he keeps me informed of, corporations registered with the state, that is their place of doing business as Dayton. People who are on neither, but they advertise on Facebook and have websites and that same listing their business and it's a Dayton location. So there's probably somewhere around 350 or so local businesses in Dayton, from the person who's just, you know, selling arts out of their home to, you know, something large. And about 57–60% of them are corporations, the rest are DBAs. And of those DBAs, I don't know about the corporations, probably it's much less on those, but of those DBAs, about 88% of them are home-based. There's a lot of home-based businesses in town. And those numbers I said are kind of iffy because like, for example, the town clerk, they're only required to get a business certificate once every 4 years. So I may think they're active and out there, and I haven't talked to every business owner in town, obviously, but in fact, they may have booked up in the last year or two. It's a little bit because they have to file papers every year, so I can tell year to year whether they dissolved or not dissolved. But that's just some rough estimates about who we've been talking to, what we're looking at.
So I think Mrs. Schechter and her staff, if they look at this, can fill in the blanks for some of these. And then if you have questions that you need clarification on, if you go back to Mr. Higgins, like, what did you mean by whatever? And if I can help you with any way, any of us, just let us know. And then I think once the contact is made, there'll probably be a few more discussions, because when you speak and you're thinking, you know, you come up with those.
Were you saying something? I was just thinking of.
Anyhow, this is a fun board, Mr. Like the fence views. So again, those are just scribbly things that I wrote here, but I did want to mention to the board down the bottom, payment in lieu of taxes, one connection. This was a statement that, like a little report that Mr. Hull made during the meeting. And the reason I wrote it is because he referenced a pilot agreement. I'm not aware of any pilot agreements with anybody that's not a solar farm. So I wrote this because he said that the first year they got $25,000
Yeah, I
paid
saw
in
that.
lieu of taxes.
Right.
And this year they're going to get $35,000 in lieu of taxes. So my question to myself was, what's the basis for the pilot? Because it certainly hasn't come before the Board of Assessors. If it's truly a pilot, it may be the terminology he's using that's not correct.
Right, it might not be a, I think it's an agreement.
Well, there's the
Yeah,
agreement.
some sort of agreement.
There's the agreement when they came into town about how much money they pay a percentage of, I think it's income. Excuse me, but
That is what that check was.
what he then said was that the money is going to go to, I believe it's the police department. So the other thing that this board needs to be aware of, if it's truly a pilot agreement, citizens have to determine where the money goes. Just like the pilot agreements for solar farms,
So
there
Yeah.
are taxes being collected on solar farms and that money has not been designated. And if the voters don't designate to put it, let's say, put it in capital, put it in the capital stabilization account. It just goes into estimated receipts and way back when the first pilot agreement came down the pike, the understanding was, like many towns do, pilot money is going to be designated for an account. Let's say it's put it in capital stabilization, which means that's where it goes. And in order for it to be spent, it has to go back to town meeting. So I'm going to look into this because I don't think it's a true pilot agreement, but the other thing
I think
is.
the agreement is we're going to give X number to this, like the police department, we're gonna give X number to playground committee.
All
We're
right.
gonna
But-
do
So I'd
something.
like to
I think-
All of
I
that would
think
have to be,
that's
yeah, well,
what it is, but-
I truly
Yeah, we
believe,
can look into that.
I truly believe if that is in an agreement that says where it's going to be spent, I question whether or not there has to be town meeting involvement, just like I'm the one that stirred the pot on original pilot agreements and said they're not legal. And as we know, what the ruling was, the judge says that's correct. They're not legal without a town meeting vote. So I'm only talking procedural. That's one issue. But the other thing I'm saying to you, we are collecting money, tax money from solar farms under pilot agreements. There has been no designation in this town on where that money should go. So it's going into estimated receipts. If it's in a special account, it hasn't been authorized by this board or
I
a
don't
town meeting
understand.
vote.
I don't understand why it would go to a special account. This is a, payment in lieu of taxes. It is what they're paying
All right.
instead of taxes,
Right.
so it should be going into.
So
general tax fund.
What all I'm saying is what some communities do and what previous boards of selectmen said was the first thing you don't do is when now our pilot agreements are front end loaded. So you get the big money for the first 10 years. You don't want to, excuse me, artificially inflate your income because as that money decreases, you've been spending at this level and that income that's coming in against it is now declining. So you don't want to spend it all thinking we get all this money because it's gonna go. So that's why they put it in special accounts. I'll give you a good example. Town of Rehoboth bought Francis Farm and they bought the police station from Dartmouth and I don't know, town hall, whatever else they bought. Their pilot money had been put into special accounts by town meeting vote. So when it came time to say, we need a town hall or we need to do this, it went back to town meeting and said, well, we have money, we can fund this.
Mhm.
So that was all of the discussion when the first pilots for solar farms were discussed. So all I'm saying is this board needs to be in that loop. And since this came up, I'm going to check it out and let you guys know. But because there is pilot money already coming into this town that hasn't been designated to put it somewhere. Right now, it's not gazillion dollars, but when some of the larger solar farms come online, it'll be a substantial amount of money. And so the question is, do you spend it and artificially inflate your quite frankly, free cash? Or do you set it aside at the town meeting for obviously stabilization or capital stabilization of savings account, which
Right.
means you can spend it for something with a town meeting vote, as opposed to just putting it out there in free cash and spending it at a town
So,
meeting for whatever.
I'd
You
like
don't
to
want to spend it for
Yeah,
operation.
I'm a little familiar with some of the agreements for the
Yeah, okay.
marijuana, retail marijuana. I'll go down to One Connection personally and I'll sit with those folks for a while.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we'll talk it over. I'm just kidding.
No,
We'll sit in the back and
He won't
I'll go
be-
down with Woody.
He won't be. He won't be thinking that's.
I have to think down there? Oh, jeez.
I have a comment on this is that, I like to see the bounds of our authority. In that I don't think it's in the Board of Assessors purview to decide what the money is spent on.
And I'm not saying that.
No, we're just gonna find out what the agreement is, yeah.
However, I do think, I presume this one connection agreement was done, predated my time on the board.
Mhm.
I thought it was done by the previous board. And
At least two.
any.
It was a while
I mean,
back,
we
yeah.
do decide who gets taxed what. So if there is a pilot agreement of some sort or agreement that we're gonna give a percentage of income, whatever, I think this board should have to approve it. It's with the Board of Assessors. So that was my comments, like, so I
That's fair
wondered,
enough.
I saw like, no, that's not our business. And then it was like, yeah, this is our business. And, we should be paying attention to this. So I would hope that this board approve, I mean, we generally, not approve, the town needs to approve a pilot
Right,
agreement.
but we have
but
to be
we review
involved.
it before it
Absolutely.
goes to
We have to
town.
make a recommendation.
Yeah, we make a recommendation.
The,
Anyway, we sidelined you a little bit. I think
But
we're
it-
kind of off track on why you were here. So I'm sorry. We'll try to move you along.
Much more.
Okay, so we're gonna look into these questions, right? That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get some more information and we'll try to, and one of us will head down there. We'll talk about who wants to go down there and we'll go down there once we got our answers and we'll try to answer everybody's questions to the best of our ability. Did you say at one point in time that you look on Facebook to see if somebody's advertising a business in Dayton? But they don't have a
Down there.
permit or a license or something?
Get something to tell us?
I just wanna, my doggy wash business? So,
Authority to. We have no powers to do anything.
right,
What I'm doing is creating an inventory, a master inventory of all businesses in the.
interesting. I think,
They have that.
If it's on Facebook.
I mean, I
it's
think these are real interesting questions. What does a home-based business do? I mean, how does it set aside and with more people at home now, I think. Towns have to look at that, right? Because you're not, office space is dying in cities. So, okay, super.
I think Paul Reynolds is a member of the committee, which he is, he's also obviously the tax collector. So he was thinking that depending upon the outcome of some of this, it might be worthwhile that in some future mailings that he does with bill inserts, there be something around assessors, the responsibilities of business owners, that kind of thing, of what they're supposed to do each year and notifying assessors of changes.
That's probably a good idea.
So it just, that's would be outside of our committee, but
Mm.
something he'll probably come back to you to see. Are you interested in coming up with something that you can include in future bill inserts? So,
Certainly the deadlines, and because even though they're on our website or whatever, not everybody has a computer. And a lot of people will not go there looking for it. But because of the mailings that go out, the other thing was, if there is space on the town meeting warrant, the annual, because it's a book. So you don't want a blank page. We would say to the town clerk, give us some pertinent information to fill up that space, because we're paying for the whole thing. So let's put information for the residents, because it goes to every mailbox. If you get mail, you get one of those. So,
Fair enough. That it? All right.
Okay.
That it for public input? Any correspondence?
Now, this information that's attached to his questions, I think will go on to unintended also.
Okay,
It's correspondence.
not correspondence. Okay.
Well,
I read the whole thing and still said, what?
I know I did too, sorry. It's like, I hope Nancy really read that.
Yeah, I said, what?
All right, so I guess.
So we're doing this under correspondence? Okay,
Yes, that's fine. So,
so
there was a public request.
Records.
records requests. Yep,
The electric light district, we get some information, a formal list, which is not a public record. Find out values of the poles, because, the gentleman, he said, the poles are on town property, telephone pole, national grid poles, so He was looking to see what the values were, because I guess it sounds like I mean, I don't know.
Do they get taxed on it?
They get taxed.
They get taxed on telephone poles.
There's gonna be tax. I don't remember. Do you even know the whole story?
Well, we had that settlement attempt that came through
Well,
from,
this is all about electric light district.
no. You're saying telephone poles. There's no such thing as a telephone pole. They're utility poles.
Okay, so
They're owned
utility-
jointly in the National Grid area. Forget the north end, that's TMLP. The poles in the National Grid service area are owned jointly by National Grid and Verizon. And they have a rule, and I'm not sure which one is
They
which.
National Grid or they Verizon, one of them
No, they own the pole
jointly.
jointly.
Correct.
And the deal is, if a pole has to be replaced, somebody snaps a telephone, utility pole. One company yanks out the broken thing and puts in the new one. And if one has to be removed, it's the other one. So let me just say, I'm not sure if this is the correct order. National Grid installs and Verizon removes. For example, Tremont Street, all those new poles that are up near west of Middle Street, National Grid set all those poles for the solar
Right.
farm.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason we ran into this was when we were doing the bridge project and the poles had to be all set in the field. So those are all brand new poles.
Yeah.
And we got into the two companies. So when I read this, what confused me was they're talking about telephone poles. They're truly utility poles. They're asking for tax information. Well, we all had that thing come before us about Verizon fighting the assessment at the state level. Because remember at the meeting we
Yes.
went to?
Yeah.
At December, like over a year ago, we were told by the speaker, it's coming and Verizon will get something. And the recommendation to all of us was, don't try to fight it. You're going to be spending legal money for nothing. Let the utilities deal with it. So again, in reading this, I'm thinking, well, they're talking about poles that are jointly owned. So my question would be, we know Verizon was fighting something and we know we get money from Verizon. And I'm thinking, what about National Grid? Because these poles are jointly owned. So that's what I found so confusing, because I'm thinking the Dayton Electric Light District are calling them telephone poles. And exactly what came out of it, the only thing I can think of is I think there was a settlement or close to a settlement with Verizon across the whole state, not just here. And I suppose we could say, well, the tax bill for Verizon is X. Or because the total tax bill would be public information,
Right. Well,
but it's just,
so
I don't know.
the request came through. It was denied.
By me.
Okay.
But I
Then
also read-
Mark appealed it.
Right, because he's part of that electric district. he
Right.
has to-
So he appealed. So he appealed it saying, we need the information. We were like, well, we don't even probably have all that information, right? Is that kind of what we were looking at? Like, I'm not sure we can comply with this because we probably don't have the information to give you. Is that what it was? Or it's just not public?
Not a public document.
It's not a public document. So that means we can't provide a public document for a public record request if the public document doesn't exist. But then this conclusion looks to me like, hey, give it to them.
Right. That's
So we don't have it. If it's not a public document, how can we give it to them? Can't we tell Mr. Monza that it's not a public document? So a public record request we can't comply with a public record request for something that's not public. I mean, that's pretty simple to me. He's saying if in accordance, right, in order provided, Mr. Pacheco with a response to his request provided in a manner consistent with this order. Okay, it's not a public record, so we can't provide it. I think that's what I'm kind of thinking through.
South NRRC had mentioned maybe they should reach out to the utility company to get that information.
Well, it mentions.
Now, can we
National
tell them
Grid.
what we taxed them on? I mean, what information do we have on these utility poles? Even though they call them telephone poles, that's whatever. So,
We have, I mean, I think he's looking to see how much, I don't know what the value of the poles are. This is electric district.
So
what,
may I ask, what
Yes.
specific information is this person?
Mark.
Dayton Electric Light District.
It's on here.
What
I
are
don't,
they
you don't
looking
have a copy of my stuff. So originally they start
Oh,
out
Tina wrote it. She says,
requesting
Data sent to RRC.
RRC regarding telephone poles for the town of Dayton.
So now, what information would you normally send to RRC? What type of?
RRC, they,
This is our consultants?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, so they are an agent of us.
Yeah.
So they can't give any
What
information.
sort of information would you normally, forget electric light? other
Okay,
business.
so
What sort of information?
we have formal lists, which they will list everything for personal property,
Mhm.
because this is a personal property question.
Okay, so.
And that's a public
what I wanted
record.
to-
Yeah.
to get-
So
So what we're saying is that.
That's
you
not a public
provide
record.
Information about, say, a list of equipment that a business has or something like that.
they do.
You give that to them and then they come back with evaluation, correct?
Yeah. pretty
That this
much.
is what we're gonna tax on. So what is public information is the tax. How much did we charge in tax? What is not public information is the list of equipment.
Right.
We
Right.
cannot
Okay.
give list of equipment. And I believe that's where your objection falls under, is
Correct.
that we cannot,
Break out how
we
much.
cannot tell the world, I mean, you can drive down the street and see utility poles if you'd like, but we can't say, this is the list of things that we sent to our consultants to determine the value,
Because that's not public.
because that's not public information.
Right.
Okay,
But we
so,
can say, we charge them.
right,
X.
so we can provide them whatever actually is public. So if that information is public, it's consistent with the order saying whatever is consistent. Give them that much,
That's not gonna break out what they're asking.
but we can't provide the other
This
stuff.
is them, look, this
Then
is
they have to, then,
But
But
if
they
you-
only want this.
If you could, in your response, do something like I just, and explain that, we don't have to be nasty about it, is what I'm
Right.
saying. We could just simply say.
I can
this-
provide you, yeah.
We can't provide you with a list of information that is specific to any one of the people we tax.
I already say this.
Oh, you did do that.
Yes, it's not the first time. This is the determination of me saying, no, it's not a public. That's Brian. So I am here. That's me.
Right, so you gave a correct response. I'm simply trying to say that if you could do it in a way that's more clearly understood, saying that, that because they're a business, we cannot provide lists of personal property. Let's put it that way. We cannot provide lists of personal property for any taxpayer. Because this is private information that is not public and we cannot publish. So I'm saying, if you, elaborate.
I don't think
and
so.
say,
Well, let's just try it because that's all you.
They already have appealed it.
Right, well, Mr. Manza can't order you to provide something that's not public.
Matter of fact, I think what he said here was,
it's not public. Yeah, he
It
said
says-
it is public.
Right.
where did he say it's public?
There's a lot of.
Well, he's trying to say that in full transparency, let's make sure they have as much information as possible, the way I read it, if I boil that down. Saying in full transparency,
Oh,
let's
wait a
make
minute,
it,
you know what, I wasn't thinking of this as because they're saying it's the electric light district, it's a public entity.
so
It is
everything
not.
should be.
That might be a wrinkle. And maybe that's what he's saying here.
I don't think so. I think my personal opinion, having read this over and over and still saying what? The electric light district does not know what it's asking for.
Correct.
So they said, give us any information. Well, first thing I say is, you gotta be more specific. If this had come to me, let's say stormwater committee, I'd be saying, we need to meet with you because this doesn't make any sense. Number one, you're talking about telephone poles. There are no telephone poles. They're jointly owned. In this thing, in another place, it says you should ask National Grid. Wait a minute. Tell us exactly what it is you're looking for. There is some public information that we can give you. For example, we can tell you, what's the total tax we receive for utility poles? Whether it's, and let's say it's Verizon this and National Grid that, okay? And the total is this.
Well, that's probably what they want, but we can't get.
My
that.
point is, we're trying to guess what it is they're asking. All they're saying is, and all this guy is saying is, public information, and you gotta release it. Wait a minute, wait a minute.
So who owns the telephone poles? It's National Grid and Verizon,
They're
right?
owned jointly. Yes, that's what we've
National
been
Grid and
told.
Verizon. Okay, so the Dayton Electric District, which is a public entity,
Does not own them,
does not own them.
No,
And they're asking the Board of Assessors to provide
private information,
private information of National Grid and Verizon.
which we can't.
No, you can't.
like you said, we could say, well, we looked back and for FY 22, the total tax that came in from Verizon was this and National Grid was this. So together, the total receipts for poles and wires and whatever was this. Now, what they're saying for is any information. Well, no, any information's not public. But I don't think they realize it's not just give us the number and everything else. Doesn't work that way. On top of all that, they're not aware of this big to-do that Verizon has got statewide, that we've had meetings on and have been advised, don't fight it in court, just wait for the dust to settle. So the best we can do is say, well, those two utility companies in total paid us this in this particular year. But if they want to know how many utility poles are there and
So it sounds like
to make it
Rates are gonna
further
be low.
complicated, and they're an electric light district, they should have known this. In regards to telephone poles in the town of Dayton, time out, you got a whole section that doesn't apply. It's TMLP. So the town of Dayton, no, folks, you got to be more specific. So this guy is telling us, release. My response to this guy would be, the request that has been made, and I'm willing to draft this, does not address specifically the information that is being requested. And I'll start with, we have two separate electrical utilities in this town. One is municipal. Forget them. Doesn't apply. They're asking for information in the whole town. Well, again, the whole north end, forget it. They're also calling them telephone poles. They're not telephone poles, they're utility poles, and our understanding is they are jointly owned. And yet, if you're only asking for telephone poles, you only want to know what Verizon's paying? I mean, and then
Right.
again, so I think it
So-
needs clarification.
Okay, so
We got 10 days.
Bill, are you okay with Nancy drafting a response like that? Do you want to see it first? Do you think it should be something else? What's your thought?
My thought is that we should speak. So let me
Can we
clear
get-
on what's going on here. So Mark Pacheco is representing Dayton Electric, correct?
Well,
He's on
Tina made the
He's on the committee.
Yeah, Tina
And so-
made the
so-
request.
So he requested to you, you denied, he went to
His
the
people, his,
supervisor of records here in the state.
yeah, they wanted to appeal.
And appeal the denial.
This is this letter. So what I would suggest is that before we send letters, why doesn't somebody pick up the phone
Talk to Mark.
and talk to
We need to talk.
Manza?
um,
Here, speak to the person in this division. I mean, I assume Mark is he's pushing as hard as he can.
No, this has all got to go through the public information's officer at the town. It's got to go through Mark Pacheco, even if it hits the AG's office, because I've been
Can we-
through this
The
room.
back and forth part.
Yeah, we got to
Okay.
deal with Mark Pacheco as
Directly.
public
Okay,
information.
so have
All right, so
have a
can we get
conference call.
clarification from Mark and say, what are you really looking for? Like Nancy's saying,
I'm saying.
step before she drafts a letter?
I'm okay with the idea of drafting a letter. However, it feels a little adversarial, whereas I think we could be cooperative and try to just be clear. I mean, we're willing to.
Right, so that's what I'm saying, like get on the phone and say, what exactly are you looking
Yeah.
for? So we can be clear on what we're denying or giving.
And so it doesn't mean if you sit everybody in the room, have a 10-minute conversation,
You need to talk to.
And
what's
decide-
that guy? The
decide what the
electric
right thing to
district
do
guy
is.
That always
Oh.
comes in.
Yeah. Who's it? It's
Doug, is it Doug?
No,
Oh, I know the guy on the hill. Donnie Burt.
That is who we need to talk to, because it's him that is.
No.
That can-
Spearheading.
High for us?
No. A public records request has to go through the public information officer.
But he's already come in multiple
But
times.
no, you don't deal with him. Anybody that comes in, if I came
But
into
can we
your
be at the
office.
table with Mark is what
No,
we're saying.
wait a
Can he be at the table with Mark? if Mark is making the request and now we have to deal through Mark, can't we get Mark involved and Donnie and say, clarify this for us, please, before we respond?
I think, when I say write a letter, I'm not saying write a letter to this guy, I want to say Arthur Manson, but it's Manson.
Amanda, Arthur.
Anyhow, we've got to deal with the public information officer and say, Mark, this is not clear. We had some discussion. We're not really sure what the initial response was, and yet we've got this letter telling us we have to do thus and so. We need to sit down and talk about what exactly does the electric light district
Me.
commissioners, what are they looking for?
Okay, so
Okay.
we can do
So
that.
Mark,
Can that be?
get us an extension. He's the guy that's got to get the
Right,
extension.
so, okay, would that be, say, me and you and Mark? To say, look, we're responding to this request, we need to know a little bit more information before we officially respond. And what we can provide and what we can't provide, right? I mean, that's what we're saying. Let's get Mark involved, because we have to direct,
We have
we have to
to
deal
deal
directly with Mark.
with him.
Get Mark
That's
involved.
exactly right.
Me and you can sit down and say,
I want to be at that meeting because
what,
I've had to deal with this kind of, I'll say stuff with open meeting law and public records requests before. And you have to be,
well, if the two of us are there, that's a
very
problem. So that would be
specific.
you, that would be just you,
okay?
just be one.
You have to be very specific. It's almost like, they say if you go to court and you're asked a question, if it's a yes or no answer, only give yes or no. Don't get into it. What they've done is say, we want this, and we're
Yeah, we
saying
get that.
we
Okay,
can't
so,
have it.
all right, so then it would be Nancy, Stephanie, Mark in a room
Have a conversation.
and say,
Yep.
so we can clarify this. We've discussed it at the board. Now you can speak for us at the board just to get information and say, here's what
I
we
don't think
discussed. We're
there's any
confused.
Yeah.
disagreement amongst the three of us.
Right, I agree
What
with
needs
that.
to be done.
Our
Yeah,
goal
okay, that's
is
fine.
get an
Okay.
extension. Get an extension of time to respond because of.
Yes, I get it. Okay, that's fine.
I mean, so that's the first thing we have to do.
Okay, that's the first thing we do.
I know they have their rate is gonna be going up. And he wants to,
Who's that?
I'm sorry. the
Electric light district, right.
So
Their
that
rate will be
committee
Going up to the customers.
to themselves, I think. I think they've been on.
You know, electric rate or tax rate?
I don't,
Right.
I really don't. I just.
If you live in
All right,
that.
well, let's
light
get
district,
let's get clarity on this. There's too many what ifs and who knows. So let's do that. Let's just get some clarity
All
so
right.
we can be on the same page.
What's the,
So I'm going to make a motion that Mr. Schechter and I meet with the town clerk to discuss the request for public records from the Dayton Electric Light District relative to utility poles.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any more discussion?
I think the telephone.
I think- All those in favor?
You remember Green Acres when they had to climb the poles to get to the telephone? That was the telephone. pole.
all right, so,
All right, that's correspondence. Okay, so
Yeah.
now we're on minutes. Do we have any minutes?
we, guys read them? They went out.
I thought. Is there four? I thought there was three.
There are only 3 because the executive session minutes that I typed up
But she sent to me weren't the right ones.
weren't the right ones.
So I looked at it and said, they're okay. And then she says, no, they're not. So the
So-
executive session of 5-3 is the one, forget that one. It's the other 3.
Yeah, it's the other 3 that went out.
5-3 executive.
Yes.
Yes.
Those are not
Okay,
available.
so I read them, I'm good with them, so I motion that we approve the minutes from 4/12/23, 5/3/23, 4/12/23 executive session.
Second,
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor?
see, Bill, we really agree on a lot of stuff.
We usually agree on.
Yes, we do.
Okay, and then the unanticipated is that
You're
the
gonna,
taxes coming in from the sale of the auction land. The tax amounts.
So we have to vote to do what?
You're just gonna sign it. I just didn't have it on the agenda because we just
All right, but it's,
No,
No, no.
she said to put that to the next meeting.
no, I said
Yeah.
I'll bring it up under anticipated, but my
Oh, I thought you
question
said
is.
next meeting. Okay.
No, but my question is,
Hmm.
I agree with what we talked about when, to give him authorization to sign something.
Mhm.
Even if you don't have to vote to authorize to sign something, the fact that we do it shows it in the minutes, so that if you ever have to look back and say, when did we talk about it?
Right.
Because one of the things we're dealing with right now is looking for stuff that goes back to previous boards of assessors relative to pilots, and we can't find it.
Okay,
So
so you
It's
want it
always
to be
good.
part of our record here.
just, yes,
Okay,
yes.
I have a copy of this in my house.
Can I ask, so what is this in terms of all these properties were sold?
Correct.
Why is this amount, the pro forma tax and not balance of sale price? Doesn't all of it go to us?
No,
Where's the money go?
wait a second,
Town.
what's the question again?
So we're signing something here.
Yep.
It is a commitment, warranted commitment, I assume?
Yeah,
Yeah, a warranted commitment. That's for $3,000 on all of these properties. I'm gonna say pro forma, meaning unpaid taxes.
pro forma, I mean, they're paying the rest of 23 fiscal year and 24. So to me, that means this is what
Prorated.
you're paying, you don't have a rate for 24. This is,
Wait a minute, maybe I misunderstood this. This is an amount that they paid in addition to the sale
think
price. Okay, I got it now. Light goes up.
Yay.
So we sold all these
he
properties.
was thinking and talking.
We're talking at the same time.
Same.
I smelled.
So this is when they sold the property, somebody bought it and they said, oh, well, you're buying it, you have to. pay
Congratulations.
Taxes. There's
Correct.
extra-
Check up on the, correct. Has
Correct.
to.
So
Correct.
that's what this is.
So
now I understand
transfer
it.
title all
I
taxes.
will
That's what's right.
motion that we sign the warrant and commitment for $3,062.13 for the auction properties.
Second,
Motion made a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And there are two places to sign.
I already caught him once today.
oh, you did?
I did.
I just wanted to see if our
And-
quality
and-
control was.
Like reached out and put a sticky on his forehead and said, you are supposed to sign this one too.
Don't make us sign his forehead.
Be a lot of signature.
So it's just some executive session
With,
with, yes.
I hereby move that we move to executive session under general law, chapter 30A, section 21A7, to comply or act under the authority of any special law or federal granted aid requirements, specifically to review and discuss and act on fiscal year 2020 statements, not be returning to open session.
That was the motion last.
Because you were not listening.
We have a second.
Made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, actually, you need a roll call vote for this.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
you go into executive session.